Hi guys, Mrs. Waymeyer here. I'm going to talk to you today about prime factorization with powers and exponents. I would encourage you, if you need a refresher on what prime factorization is or how to make prime factorization trees, go back and watch that video first, as I'm going to go a little bit quicker in building these factor trees. But a friendly reminder, we're taking these numbers, breaking them down into prime factors, not using one, and trying to get them as small as we can. So 72 is going to go at the top of my factor tree, and I'm going to break it down into two factors, 8 and 9. Remember, we are multiplying these two numbers together. We are not adding to get 72. So what can you multiply to get 72? Thinking multiplication throughout. If I were to break apart 8, since it is also composite, I'm going to use the factors 2 and 4. For 9, I'm going to use the factors of 3 and 3. Here's where I like to go through and circle any of those factors that I have so far that are prime. I know that I can't break those down any further except for 1 and itself. However, 4 is composite. So I'm going to take that one and break it down into 2 times 2. Just like we did in our last video, and I mentioned before when we were finding our prime factorization, it's really helpful if you write all of these last digits in order from least to greatest. And here today you're going to find out why. So I notice that I have 2 times 2 times 2 times 3 times 3. So those are the factors, prime factors of 72. If I wanted to find or write this using powers and exponents, I'm just going to take this one small step further. So what I'm looking for here is, do I have any numbers that are duplicates? I notice that I have 3 2s. So a shorter way to write this, instead of listing all of them out with multiplication symbols in between, I notice that I have 3 2s. So I could say 2 to the third power. Now be careful when you're writing these. Make sure it doesn't look like 23. It should look like 2 is your base and 3 is your exponent. I still am multiplying, and now I also notice that I have another duplicate. This time my base, my number that is repeating, is 3, and I end up having 2 of them. So both of these answers are correct. You could write them. However, if your question asks you for the powers and the exponents, you will need to write it this second way. So just taking, those factors and kind of condensing them down, writing a little bit shorter using our exponents. So let's try that with a second example. So 88 is going to go at the top. Two numbers that I know I can multiply to get 88 are 8 and 11. 8 is composite, so I'm going to break that down into 2 and 4. And then 11 is actually prime, so I can stop there. 2 is prime, but 4 is not. So now that I have all of these branches broken down to prime numbers, I know I can stop. Remember, the first step is always going to be to list them, making sure that you don't forget any. List them from least to greatest. So 2 times 2 times 2 times 11. You can also check your math. 2 times 2 is 4. 4 times 2 is 8. 8 times 11 gets us 88. So we know that our math is good. We again, if we're going to use power and exponents, we want to see, are there any numbers that are duplicates? I notice that again in this problem I have 3 2s. So 2 is the number that's being repeated over and over and over again. 3 is going to be the exponent because that's how many times it is repeated. Then I notice that I have 11 and I only have it once. So you could write 11 to the 1th power. That's not incorrect. However, most people when they're writing exponents, they really only write exponents that are 2 or larger. So typically I just leave that off and just have the base number as 11. Again, both of these answers are correct. However, if your question asks you for writing it with exponents and powers, you would need to have this second answer, 2 to the third power times 11. The last example I'm going to do for you is 125. So to break this one apart, I'm going to do 5 and 25 as its factors. Again, you could go a lot of different ways, but I'm going to start here. So 5 is already prime. 25, however, is not. I'm going to break it apart into 5 times 5. And I already notice that I'm finished because I'm down to all my prime factors. If I were to list this out, 5 times 5 times 5. 5 times 5 is 25, and then 25 times 5 more is 125. So we can stop. This is going to be an example where I'm going to have my base as 5, because that's what's repeated, and it's repeated 3 times. So I'm going to write that as 5 to the 3rd power. Now notice I don't have any other numbers or other factors that are different than 5. So this is just my answer. I don't have anything else to multiply with it. However, if I did, then I would want to make sure that I list those out to the side as well. So hopefully this quick tutorial showed you how to take your prime factorization trees, take the prime factorization you're coming up with, and condensing it down and making it a little bit shorter by writing it with powers and exponents. Thanks for watching.